For fiscal year 22. We have a full agenda this afternoon. I was going to say this morning. So let me share that with you so you know what we're going to be covering in this meeting. Okay, so we're going to be looking first at the budget and programming context for FY22, including the county budget outlook, MCAEL strategic goals and initiatives, and a little bit about data on adult English literacy. And then we'll be turning to the grants program, specifically talking about timeline and looking at some of the highlights from the guidelines in the application form, what has changed for this year, the review process, and accessing the grants portal and starting an application. And then I realized I'm going to stop sharing. I realized that I was going to start out with some introductions, which I completely forgot. In case you don't know me, I'm Rudy Jung. I'm the Director of Programs at MCAEL, and I'm joined today by Kathy Stevens, our Executive Director, as well as Christine Neal and Halima Ahmed, who are on our Programs Unit team. So we're all going to be doing a little bit of presenting today. I believe Monica Casañas is also with us. I'd like to turn to Kathy actually just to get us started.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Wow, it's good to see everybody because it's been a while since I've seen everybody just through the winter and not a lot of meetings. And I'm so glad to see you all. And I do hope everyone's hanging in there and doing well. And maybe even some of you have been vaccinated already or have appointments to get vaccinated. I am not there yet, but I trust that will be somewhere soon down the road. And there is light at the end of the tunnel, as they say. So just as a place of overview to set the stage for this fiscal year, I just want to say thank you because I know you all are continuing to work under challenging conditions. Not that this work is easy peasy and in any time, but I know you're still working remotely, still doing remote classes, and still working with all the challenges that the pandemic has brought us. So thank you so much for your ongoing work. And I think many of you, I know many of you throughout this past year, we know how important your programming has been, how important your ESOL classes have been, because it's been a gateway for many people to additional services, whether it's food or medical care or mental health counseling or whatever it might be through your various organizations. And we certainly know how important ESOL classes, adult classes, are going to be as a community, as a county. We recover and go through the process of recovery, whatever the next stage of quote unquote normal looks like. We know that people, we have many neighbors who still want to improve, want to learn English, want to improve their English, may need to take their English to a different level based on whether their job has changed, whether their family circumstances has changed, all of that. So I know that, you know that, MCAEL knows that, and I will say that I believe that the county executive and the county council knows that as well. I have had a meeting in January with the county executive. He certainly knows that. All of our supporters continue to support us on the council. So they all know that that's going to be very important. And we know there's going to be need for retraining. Just had a meeting with the new executive director of WorkSource Montgomery this morning, and we know there's going to be new things that we can hopefully do with them. So I want to say we all know that, and we know we want to continue all our great support. I think my message today is the FY22 budget situation is simply an unknown. It's an unknown to me. I believe it's probably also not known to the county executive at this point, to the state. You all follow the news as well as I do, and you know that Congress, of course, is working on new stimulus packages. All of that then flows down state to county to local levels, things like that. So I don't know what situation we're going to be in. I am hopeful, based on what I just said, that we know the county continues to support our work, knows how important the work that you all do is to our economic recovery, to our children's education, I mean, look at healthcare, right? We want people to get good health information so that they can remain healthy. So we all know it's important. I will be continuing to do all the advocacy. There may be times where we will need to call on you all this spring. But I don't know. What I do know is we won't see a huge increase of any amount. It won't be, like some past years where it's a big addition to our budget. Whether we'll remain flat, whether we'll get a little bit of a cut, I have no idea. But we are working to protect all of that for all of your programs, and stay tuned. Just as a reminder for folks, the county executive releases his budget on March 15th. MCAEL as a non-departmental account is included in that budget. And then there's a period of time then when the council gets to make their imprint on that budget. They, of course, hear advocacy, they take from some areas, put in other areas, they get to massage it, and the final budget then is approved in May. So there may be an opportunity where we will need to shore up our advocacy depending on where we are in the county executive's budget. We will be in touch when we know about that. And so basically, we don't know that we'll be able to fund any new grants or programs this year. We know you all have great continuing work, and we want to continue our investments. We're just not sure about any new things, and we won't be until we see the budget, of course. And I will say, again, I mentioned the recovery. MCAEL has also been doing and continues to do so much of the work that we've done over the past 14 years. By the way, we're coming up on our 15th anniversary. So if that's not a milestone, I don't know what is. But we're continuing to do the work in the county that's needed around equity. And we know that we will be continuing to really amplify that focus through work we've been doing with our own race equity strategic plan, and initiating things like the community learning groups, which Rudy will talk about more, and you've probably heard her speak about them as well. And believe it or not, this is our 13th grant cycle. So here we go, folks. We're, continue to do your work, continue to be in touch with us, and we hope that we have another great year. So I think that concludes my remarks. I'm going to stay on, and I think after each section, we have a chance for questions. Of course, put them in the chat. I think that'll be the easiest way to handle those. So Rudy or Christina or Halima, did I miss anything? I see head shaking no. So then Rudy, back to you.
Unmuting myself there. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the strategic objectives and initiatives we've got going on now. So we have talked about this in the past, but from the MCAEL's strategic plan for 2018-2021, there are 3 program-related objectives. And you see them up here. One is to empower providers to offer quality programs and instruction that lead to learning gains. This is where the grants program fits in, of course, but there are other things that MCAEL does that work toward this objective, including all of our professional development meetings for program administrators and technical assistance that we provide as well. Secondly, we are working to increase the number of high quality instructors through instructor workshops. And as we have been just recently talking about, we've now got an online version of the former More Learning, Less Teaching, and that is now being called the Foundations for Adult ESOL Instruction course. So we're really excited about rolling that out. And a new initiative called the Community Learning Groups, which is a program that we've initiated to do 2 things. Is one, to encourage there to be more instructors from the communities where our learners are coming from, but also to expand opportunities for individuals who are not currently in classes to get a kind of a taste, get their feet wet in an English class, what is to get used to being in a classroom setting. Of course, now it's virtual, but a virtual classroom setting. And then MCAEL will be providing a warm handoff to different existing programs in the county, including all of yours. So that's just a bit about our larger objectives and initiatives. So turning now just a little bit to the broad picture of limited English proficient population in Montgomery County. According to the latest census source that we have, which is the 2018 American Community Survey, there are over 137,000 adults in the county who report that they speak English less than very well. We have this information and a lot of other information in our FY20 interactive data presentation, our story map, which is available on our website. We urge all grant applicants to use this as a reference as they're looking at the populations that they're serving, looking at who else in their zip code or their immediate area are offering classes as well. And for those who don't know, this presentation includes maps where the data on limited English proficient population in the county is overlaid with information from FY20 learner data, so that we can actually see the percentage of those who are taking classes in each zip code. So just to share a couple of charts from that story map. In other words, we can look at learners served by by language group. This is a breakdown of learners in 4 different language groups and how many are taking classes or were taking classes in 2018, 19, and 20. And you can see that there's a bit of a difference in terms of access or participation for different groups. Also, we've broken it down by region, and you can see here, for instance, this is class sites by region. We can see that there are a lot more sites in Up County, Gaithersburg, and Germantown than there are in East County. And so this data analysis helps MCAEL to look and see where the gaps are, and as well as where overall the coalition is doing well. So I urge you to take a look at that if you haven't already, as you prepare your application. So then turning now a bit to, sorry, I'll stop. Are there any questions? Okay, thanks. I'll rely on Christina and Halima to just butt in if there are questions, because I can't see the chat. Thank you. So in terms of the grants program, this is just a bit of an overview. MCAEL has been the grantor of county funds for adult ESOL programs since 2007. In fiscal year 21, we granted $1,285,000 to 22 organizations for 30 programs. And the main objective of the grants program is to, yes, increase the number of classes as well as the quality of instruction that lead to learner gains. And we really believe that there should be and there is room for different types of learning opportunities for different types of learners. And that's why, that's one reason why we support both very formal structured programs that are funded through our program grants, as well as the less formal drop-in, maybe meet less frequently, classes that are supported by access grants. And we also feel that having a diversity of provider organization across the county is really our strength to meet the needs of many different kinds of learners. And we also really believe that we have to address barriers to learning, such as access to reliable childcare and transportation. And so that's why we cover some of those items through our grants. So I think at this point, Halima is going to talk about our timeline for this year.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Halima Ahmed. I work directly with some of you, but I've had interactions with others. So in terms of like the timeline, today we are doing this informational session. On March 15th that week, we're going to be having a different slots and the link will be on the grants page. So you'll be able to schedule an appointment with someone from the programs team. This is particularly for new applicants or new program staff or anyone who might have a question about the process. This is the date that you will need to know, April 7th, 5 p.m. That's when the applications will be due. And then the week of May 12th, May 14th, we'll have the interview process. And this is very similar to what has been in the past. We'll send you the different times that are available and we'll work with you to schedule a time that's convenient for you. Next slide, please.
Sorry, there.
All right, so in June, we'll have an idea of the different recommendations that's there. The MCAEL board is going to approve the recommendation that was suggested by the grant panelists. And then in June, July, we'll start the process of the LOAs. In September, that's when the first checks will go, and that's when we'll go through the whole invoice and the data workbook information. And then January 11th, 2022, that's when the first mid-year report is going to be due. Next year around this time, that's when the second grant check will be available for FY22. And then July 6th, that's when the final report will be due to conclude FY22.
Okay, and then we'll talk now about some specific points in the guidelines and application form. Halima?
So Rudy has touched briefly on this. The two different grants that we have. One is the program. That's typically for the larger programs who are offering at least 120 hours of instructional time per year. And these are larger programs, again, who have established infrastructures for staff and larger programs in a formal setting. And in terms of the data workbook that we have, there's more required of the programs to record the success of the program and also have a managed enrollment for classes. They could have a component of drop-in, perhaps, I think, if I'm not mistaken, but it's more structured and managed enrollment.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. This is for the program. Again, the funds can be used for support services such as childcare while classes are in session, and for transportation for learners to get to and from class, just to alleviate that barrier. The funds can also be used to strengthen the program management and the capacity of the organization to deliver the services, and it can also be used for indirect costs. And next, we'll talk about the access classes. They're more informal in structure. You could have drop-in classes, conversational classes. These are for programs that are just starting. They could be based in places of worship and provide conversational club for people who need to take the classes. And the programs with classes that have, there are programs that have classes that need less than 120 hours a year. The funds can be used to pay the instructor for instructional material, for books. Again, services could be, the funds could also be used for childcare while classes are in session, transportation support for students. professional development for teachers. Priority will be given, the funding will be prioritized for core cost of program. And this applies to both the program and the access. Funds cannot be used for refreshment or food. Funds cannot be used also for gift cards for volunteers, instructors, or learners. However, stipends are allowed for volunteers and instructors.
Thank you. And just to note, as with last year, the maximum limit for access grant request is $20,000.
And then for the grant focus, this is both for program and access. It will be for continued or new services in the Up County region, and also for East County, and in other zip codes where there aren't that many ESOL classes. For access grants, this could be drop-in classes. Another priority is for populations that are currently not accessing classes based on the available data. And Rudy mentioned that you could find that information on our website. Classes that are also offered on Saturdays and Sundays. And for programs, it would be innovative approaches to reaching more learners.
Okay, thank you, Halima. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about, in particular, our FY22 application form.
Sorry, Rudy, we had one question. Maybe we can just address it now. Just wanted to clarify the meaning of drop-in classes.
Drop-in is a class where a learner is not expected to attend each class meeting. Does anybody want to add to that? I think that's the basic definition. Okay. So with the FY22 application, the format has not changed in that there are still two online forms. One is the narrative application, and one is the application data summary. The narrative application is, the questions from this are in the guidelines that are on our website. And to that, there are 3 attachments that are all organizational supporting documents, financial documents, as well as a list of board of directors. And then the application data summary is, I think actually there's a slide on this, sorry, but it has one attachment, which is the data and budget workbook, which is also available on our website with the guidelines. So with this year, we've been doing some thinking because of the possibility that the budget may not be growing this year. So we tried to streamline and reduce the amount of work that returning grant partners or current grant partners have to do. So we've identified on the application questions that do not need to be responded to if there are no changes from this year, FY21. So on the application, on the portal, you'll see that you can just put same as FY21 if there are no changes. The applications should be completed with the assumption that in-person classes are possible. Now, of course, we don't know for sure. We're still in a changing situation, but I think for the purposes of this application, it would be useful for organizations to assume that we will be going, that in-person classes will be possible, though you may decide that you still want to have an online class or two in your program. Certainly that's something that you should think about. This year also, I thought it would be useful for especially access grants to see the indicators of learner progress in the application form or in the guidelines, just as to give some ideas about, as you're filling out the outcomes section, on what kinds of indicators of learner progress can you choose to look at, and in other words, to measure your progress during the year. So yes, notes about the data and budget workbook, which, as I mentioned, is available now on our website, on our grants webpage. I'm just going to note some things from that we noticed from last year's application. So please complete the workbook. You know, there are, I believe, 5 tabs, so that's where they kind of act as worksheets, so you can figure out what your targets are going to be and everything. It's useful to do that first before you fill out your application data summary online. And please make sure before you hit the submit button that the numbers match. Also, that there are detailed instructions in the workbook that we have highlighted in yellow. And then a couple of, or one change on the budget, the program expenses. For returning applicants, we encourage that you use last year's budget, but not the actual that you have now, because you're doing online classes, but your letter of agreement budget, because I believe that it, for most of you, was assuming in-person classes. So that's just a suggestion, a recommendation. So as you remember in the form, those of you who did this last year, we have the program expense form is a comparison between last year's and this year's budget. We'll take a look at that in a minute here. Also, providing cost basis for each line item is just so important for the grant panel, so they can take a look at how you got to the total you got to for that line item. So let me just turn to here now. So this is a screenshot of this year's application budget form. So you'll see here is the FY21, your FY21 budget, and then your projected budget. So this year we added examples for each line item. So for instance, here you have ESOL program coordinator, and this is the cost basis that gets you to your total program cost. And then in this example, the organization is asking $5,000 from MCAEL for this line item. And this percentage is automatically, comes up automatically. It'll calculate it for you. So please do include this detail, because we still sometimes see applications from last year. We had a number of blank cost basis, and then the panel doesn't really know how you got to whatever cost you're asking for. So it's really important to have this information. That being said, so we've provided some examples here for several different line items. That being said, please double check then your totals when you do your own budgets, because we've inserted these examples, the total at the bottom is a very complicated formula. So just make sure it's correct. So either, I know sometimes when people cut and paste in there, it overlays the formulas at the bottom. So just make sure they're correct. Okay, I think that's all I have to say about the forms. I'll stop here to see if there are any questions.
We don't have any.
Okay, great. So I believe Christine was going to tell you a bit about the grant panel.
Hi, everyone. All right, so I'll talk a little bit about the grant review panel. So it is a community grant review panel, which is representative of the county. We look for people with expertise on adult ESOL and education. It includes nonprofit and business professionals, grant makers, grant reviewers, specific populations and their needs, and as we try to get people from different regions of the county. So MCAEL staff members support applicants through the process and coordinate with the grant review panel to facilitate the whole process. MCAEL staff members do not make funding decisions or participate in the funding allocation process. So what criteria will the panel use to review applications? So the evaluation criteria for FY22 is a little bit different from FY21 because enrollment numbers, of course, are down. So, and people may not be able to expect an increase in learners for FY22. We really don't know what's happening yet. So what are they looking for? A clear indication of lessons learned this year and incorporating that into next year's plans. A thoughtful approach to transitioning back to in-person classes, evidence of flexibility in meeting the needs of learners. We also look at, or they will also look at past performance and meeting grant requirements. For example, number of meetings attended, submission of reports. Looking for a complete application, including budget detail. Exactly. You're not going to want to have to redo calculations and ask for missing information. So it's really important that you take the time to make sure everything adds up and they can clearly calculate the cost basis explanation. And the panel will be using, or they will continue to use, an equity lens for program review. Next slide. Okay, so I believe Rudy will be taking you to the grants webpage right now to take a look at what it looks like and getting into the portal.
Actually, I think we'll just look at it here.
Okay. All right, I'll turn it back to you then.
Okay, so as I mentioned, for those of you who aren't familiar with the grants webpage, here's the URL. And it has a lot of information on it, some of which are in the guidelines as well. But at the bottom of the page here is where the grant guidelines are. And I need to mention now, for those of you who have already gone here, we actually uploaded a revised version of the guidelines because unfortunately we found some errors and omissions. So just to note that you should look back here and get the most updated one. It'll be noted that it's revised and today's date, so you know that it's the new version. So apologies for that. Also, after this meeting is over, sometime this afternoon, we will have a big button at the bottom here that says apply here, which is a fast way to get to the grant portal itself.
Okay, Rudy, we did have a question. I'm going to ask Kathy to answer this one, please. A question regarding what do you mean by equity lens?
Sure. I think that's a great question. And this is something that is evolving and something that we've always worked on, but we're just amplifying a little bit. Certainly MCAEL's working with the immigrant communities, the communities of color, has always been about equity. Providing someone with English skills is providing a more equitable playing field for them in whatever they do. We, MCAEL, have implemented a new strategic race equity plan. We went through a training with Leadership Montgomery. So we are starting to just make sure that we have everything teed up in our systems. Even more so, even though we know we've been doing this work, it's a moment for us to stop, reflect, see what we're doing, and making sure that, you know, as the data reflects, there's some populations in our county that for whatever reason are not getting access to classes at the same rates as other populations. And so we just want to make sure that we're using an equity lens along with the other things that we evaluate on and that we look for in that. So I hope that clarifies that a little bit. It's making sure that we continue to keep front and center our commitment to trying to make sure that we get English classes to the broadest set of population as possible, and making sure that we're looking at this with an eye towards making sure that we have an equitable system for everyone. It's hard to use the word without defining the word, but making sure that access is there for everybody. I hope that helps. I don't know who asked the question. I should look to see that, but if you need more explanation, we're happy to give it. Got it. That was a yes. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? This pretty much wraps up our presentation anyway, though I will give a refresher or an overview of how you submit a grant proposal on the portal if you want to stick around. So
Just want to say one quick thing, if I may, Rudy. I just
Yes.
want to, again, thank everyone, because again, while this, you all have applied for grants before, and this is continues to be pretty much the same system. We have tried to make a few changes to streamline it a little bit, recognizing that we most likely will not have additional funds. So we hope that's to your benefit, and we hope that's helpful. In so doing, I know that created a lot of extra work for the staff, for Rudy and Halima and Christine. So I just want to thank them for going that extra mile and thinking through that. So it's to your benefit and to everyone's benefit. But I do want to just thank Rudy and Halima and Christine for all their continued work on this, because every year you think, oh, it's just going to kind of be the same, but there are always tweaks that we want to make to improve the system. And a lot of that comes from your feedback year after year as well. So keep telling us what we can do differently, and we will make the effort to continue. A pathway of continuous improvement is what we say. So thank you for that.
thank you, Kathy. Are there any other questions? I also thought of a couple points I want to make before we move on, but
Don't see anything else right now.
okay. These are technical issues about the portal for current grant partners. If you look on your homepage when you go to the portal, you will see, different cards that represent your different year's applications. And you can access previous year's applications and reports. I just wanted to mention that because of the way our system is set up, that when we tweak a question, when you use the system to go back to your old application, the question will look different. So if you go back to last year's proposal, you'll see this year's instructions on it. So don't freak out. Your answer is not changed. It's just the question has changed. So I would urge everybody, when they finish, they submitted their proposal, I would take a PDF and make sure you have that in your own computer. So don't just rely on the one in the system, just so you have a clean copy of what you actually submitted. Okay, that's all I wanted to say.
Rudy, there was a question that Scott had, and Cecilia, I noticed Cecilia had unmuted herself. I didn't know if you had a question, but Scott wanted to, says he understands the guidelines have been updated, but were there any modifications to the data file, or are they okay as they were placed on the website earlier?
Data files are fine. It's just the guidelines, the Word document or the PDFs. Thank you for that clarification.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity, for guidance. You always do that, and that's something that we really appreciate. It. Not everybody does that. I just thank you.
Yes,
Thank you, Cecilia.
thank you. Yeah, I support that.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Yes, no, absolutely. I had a question. I have to go back and look, but I believe with CASA's grants, when we did the LOA last year, we had done it with the assumption that half the year would be virtual and half would be
I
in
see.
person. Should we note that when we do the budget, or I don't know, because yeah, I think you had said, the LOA was assuming that would be all in person.
Yes, I think there may be some variation among different organizations. I would note that, but yeah, what I meant by putting the suggesting that you use the LOA budget is just to make sure that those supports that and like rent and childcare are in your budget.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And I do want to underscore, and this, Rudy, this is in the application instructions. We want to know what you took away from this year and what you're learning and what you're going to put into place. And obviously, this coming year might be a bit of a recalibration, if you will. You hopefully will be back in person. You might retain some things that are not in person. So we know you're recalibrating, and we know things were recalibrated even this year as well. So it's not a clear-cut situation.
Mhm.
Mhm. Okay. Well, if there are no further questions, please, you can email us, or for those who are new applicants or new program staff, as Halima had mentioned, there are signups on our website for appointments on the week of March 15th for specific questions on the application form. So I will be turning now to the portal. So those of you who don't need to or don't feel like you want to listen to this, you're welcome to go now. But I'm going to share my screen again, and
Okay.
okay.
I'm going to drop
There we
off
go.
too. Thank you, everyone. Nice seeing you, and thank you for your continued work.
Thank you.
Okay, so our grants portal, as I said, the button will become live on the website later today, hopefully. In terms of, if you're an organization that has not applied before, how do I get rid of that? The first thing, it says first create an account, one per organization. So what you do when you click that button, it'll say sign in or need an account. So if you already have an account, if you're one of our current grant partners, you'll be able to just sign in. I believe also if you've applied before, your account should still be alive. So you should just use the email and password that you established previously. And once you sign in, it'll bring you to the MCAEL Grants homepage. This is what you'll see if you don't have a profile already set. If you're coming to this brand new, the first thing you'll need to do is create an organizational profile. So you just click on the plus there, assign, create a profile to get started. And then it'll ask you some basic questions about you and your organization. And this form will stay in the system, will just stay in the system. So in future years, you'll be able to come back to this anytime and edit it if it needs editing. And on this form, you'll also be asked to upload your 501c3 letter from the IRS. So once you've created and saved your organization profile, this is what you'll see. You'll see here is organization profile. See, you can edit it anytime here. And I urge those of you who are coming back to the grant site to make sure that that's all correct. I know, sometimes addresses change and everything. But after this organizational profile is complete, you'll also see grant applications. And to get started, all you need to do is click on the Get Started button. And when you do that, it will bring you to the two forms that are necessary to submit with your application. So one is the grant application form. And to get started, all you need to do is click Edit. And this is what you see. So when you first come, I'm sorry, you can't see the top there. It says select access or program grant to get to the right application form. So it's the second question there. You put your legal name in first, and then right under that, it says access or program. And that is a critical question because if you do access, it will automatically bring up the access questions. If you do program, it will bring up the program questions. So be sure that you are applying for the right grant there. And I think that's maybe all I need to say about the application form. Oh, actually, here's another slide. So to upload your supporting organizational documents, this is at the end of this first form here, the application form. All you need to do is click the select a file. So this is an old screenshot. So it says previous fiscal, see under organization statement of financial activities, it says previous fiscal year. When you go in there now, it will say FY20. So the previous fiscal year for this purpose is FY20. The current fiscal year is FY21. And to upload a file, all you need to do is click on select file, and it will only accept certain kinds of files. For this, I believe it's a PDF. Also, one thing that tripped up a few folks last time, we're asking for 2 different documents in this. So there's only one file upload here. So you'll need to put them together. If that's not possible, just let us know ahead of time if you're having trouble with that. Scott, do you have a question?
A question on that, Rudy, because on the fiscal year that we're talking about, when you ask the previous fiscal year, you're saying in the application, is it going to say for the previous year, they're going to call it fiscal 19 or fiscal 20?
It's FY20. So basically this slide is outdated.
Okay.
It's just I took it from last year's presentation.
So
when
we're
you
going to use FY20 for the fiscal year that we're in right now is fiscal 21.
Correct.
Last year is fiscal 20, and that's the way you're thinking as well.
Yes. So the point of this is so there's a completed fiscal year with budget and actuals.
Right.
So that will be FY20.
Got it. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. The second form that's online is the application data summary. And these are key data points from the data and budget workbook. And first of all, I want to thank you for we ask you to do the workbook, which is the Excel spreadsheet that is available on our website. We ask you to do that first, and then to come to this online form to fill in the key points. And I wanted to say thank you all for doing this. I know that it seems to be double work, but this is critical for our grant panel because we can use, by putting your numbers in this form, we have it in the system and we can analyze it for them and put it together very easily rather than having them look through each of your Excel workbooks. So just to say that. So I realize it might seem a lot of work, but it should be pretty straightforward. And again, we appreciate your making sure that your numbers match from your workbook to this online form. And again, I believe that we've tried to make this as clear as possible, but on this application data form, it says the current year's actual, which means FY21. Sorry, this is again an old slide. It should be FY21. So our current year and then next year's proposed target. That may be it for this. Yes. So just one final comment, I suppose, is that once you've completed both forms, there are options to save draft and to mark as completed. So as you're working on it, you want to make sure you save your drafts so that when you come back next time, it'll still be there. if you feel like you're finished with it, you mark it as complete. But don't worry, because you can still edit it. So, but if you mark it complete, if you mark both complete, that will allow a submit button to show up on the in the portal. And I just wanted to say, especially for those of you who are used to our reporting system now where you don't have to submit, you do have to submit an application. So be sure you click that at submit. It'll be big and green, because that's the only way that actual will be in the system, or that it would be marked as ready for us to, for the panel to review and everything. So any questions on the portal? Okay. Well, I guess that's it then. If anything comes up, obviously, along the way, let us know. But hopefully, hopefully it's straightforward. and hopefully, especially for those of you who are returning, it'll be a little bit less work. So, well, thank you very much again for coming today, and stay warm, stay dry, and hopefully we'll have some sunshine this weekend. All right. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.